Excuse mess.
Shabbat shalom, y'all.
Woo! Hallelujah. For another Shabbat.
Yes, sir. But it's still going. It's still like, I thought that. Shabbat shalom, family.
What's going on, fam? We're going to give it another couple seconds. Let some people come on in. We got a little bit of a late start. Forgive us. We'll talk to y'all about
Yeah.
catching up on things
Dinner
once
ran a little
we play
late.
the music out.
Dinner ran a little late today. But it was good. Oh my goodness. The chef had made some dirty rice and cauliflower. Oh my goodness. So good. Baked fish. Baked jerk fish. Woo! I shouldn't get this excited for some food, boy. It was good.
Hey, 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 hey. All right.
Yes.
So we're going to go ahead and kick this off. Shabbat Shalom again.
Shabbat shalom.
Welcome to another episode of Studying Scriptures with Aki Shlomo, the Koti Rebekah. Y'all may know her also as the Hebrew Griot from other channels, author Edwina Fort. But it's Shabbat, so
I know.
the Hebrew Griot on the Shabbat.
Yeah. Or Rebekah.
Or Rebekah, okay.
Yeah. Shabbat shalom.
So we missed y'all last week, and we apologize. We were on the road, did a little traveling, caught up with a few family members, some friends, did a little fellowshipping, catching up safely,
Yeah.
safe as we could be, you know.
Yeah.
And then that week after coming back in town, after traveling, is always
The week before and the weekend. I think, because we're such a big family.
and we getting old now.
Oh man.
So once you start getting up there in age, things just
Oh my goodness.
seem to slow down a little bit and take a little bit back to pull back together,
Man. Ain't
snap
that
back in place.
I remember when I was younger, we could pack these children up.
Okay.
Now we gotta plan. We gotta look. We gotta sit down, we gotta map it out.
Yeah.
This what everybody gonna do.
Well, we had a beautiful.
Shabbat shalom, Koti.
We had a beautiful fellowship. Shalom,
We did
Koti.
a fellowship with my sister.
And then
I love her and her beautiful daughter and grandbaby.
okay. Fellowship with Ema. Then stopped off and visited another Ak and Koti, big Ak and
Big eye.
big
Yeah.
Koti. Oh, they're older than us.
Yeah.
Couple we looked up to for a long time
Yeah.
as we were coming into the walk.
Yeah.
It helped us with guidance and wise counsel.
Yeah, they really helped us with our, just, as far as marital advice. They're an older couple, and they still going strong.
Oh yeah, beautiful.
Yeah,
beautiful.
we met them some 10 years ago. Maybe 10, 11 years ago, and they just was like, just giving us jewels.
They still look the same, going strong.
Yeah, better. They look better.
Yep.
Yeah.
came.
Yeah, baby.
And then stopped off and visit one of my uncles, and it was a blessed trip.
Yeah.
It was a blessed trip. So that's why we didn't do a study last week, because we were literally about the same time that we usually go live. We were just
Like
checking into our rooms and getting settled in and coming off the road. So we had already packed us some
and
goodies.
somebody grouchy. I ain't gonna say no names because I don't do that. I'm not messy. I ain't gonna say no names.
Do I look grouchy, y'all?
Somebody is grouchy when they travel or when they tab, but I ain't gonna say no names.
I am mission oriented,
Ooh, grouchy.
goal oriented.
Oh my
When we
God.
got something, hey y'all, this is a 10-person household. Can you imagine what it's like trying to get 10 different souls all moving in the same direction at the same time? It takes patience, tenacity, and sometimes you just gotta stop and yell, "Hey, hey, hey!"
Everybody say, oh, not Shlomo. Not Aki Shlomo. He's so chill and laid back.
I am.
Anybody that know this brother, no. He's something else, honey.
I'm very chill and laid back, as long as everything going the way.
He wanted to go. Yeah.
Hey, welcome in, y'all. I see we got a few more people coming on in. We are having a study tonight. Again, we apologize we missed y'all last week. We're just kind of telling y'all a little bit about what all we did last week.
Yeah.
Traveling and fellowshipping.
It was a good time. Good time.
Okay.
Gotta travel to see the family. You know, we love y'all. We gotta travel. We gotta get in there.
Yeah. And we know it's hard for people to travel these days, and you know, if y'all bless us with the ability to travel, we do. I mean, we trying to get more. Yeah, we trying to get more in line with. I mean, that's our culture. We were traveling people, a nomadic people anyway. And so God is blessing us to not be so bound to the typical job type situations, where we kind of stretch out a little bit, and if it's His will, within the next year or so, we'll be able to stretch out even more.
Yeah.
Go where we want to go, where we want to go. So that's our plan. We say if that's y'all's plan.
Yeah, y'all's will.
We don't want to make them laugh.
Right. Right.
How's everybody doing? Are y'all doing good out there?
Yeah.
Out there in Hebrew land? My Hebrews and Shebrews,
Okay, how everybody
little wee
doing?
brews.
I know my little baby Ari listening. How Ari doing? How's everybody doing out there?
So as we catching up, we're gonna be going through Genesis 22 through 24. Some of y'all may have read ahead. That's okay, but we're gonna pick up where we left off. Just checking our connections. Is the audio and the video good, fam? Before we move on.
Somebody let us know.
Yeah, give us a 1 or a 7. Got a little delay, I see.
Okay.
Think I can bother somebody for a little bit of high quality H2O. If you can just give me some of the picture, I will drink it. I don't want to get you up and down, over and over. It's in that
It's a
cabinet.
refrigerator.
Is it?
I think it's a refrigerator.
I think it's in that cabinet over there.
Oh, I did see it. So in that cabinet, yeah, it is.
Audio's a little choppy. I was praying that wouldn't be going on this week.
Y'all got to forgive us. Where we live, the internet is very, very bad. Like I heard somebody who was talking about Zoom and just different things like that. Like there are different platforms we could use if we had better internet, like Zoom and like Pal Talk our internet is so horrible that all those platforms really, like YouTube is like, I don't know what they're using, but they like the strongest signal we can get. I don't know. And you can see the problems we have with that, you know.
So what it is because of what Rib just said, we sometimes experience some buffering. That's what you're calling choppiness. Um, I don't know about the static. I think that's just probably the background. Again, we do have other things going on in the background. You might hear the computer. You might hear like my daughter filling up a pitcher of water right now. My children in the back of the house. So I apologize for that. Um, just bear with us, fam. We're gonna try to make it as smooth as we can. It won't always be like this. Like I said, we do have things in place. They're not overnight solutions, but we are trying to bring this to y'all as smooth as possible. The only other option would be to pre-record this.
Yeah.
I mean, if y'all want us to do that, we can. But from all of the feedback that we've gotten so far, most people wanted this to be a live thing. And so that's what we try to do to accommodate.
Yeah, this like the closest we can get it. Like before, when I first threw Zoom out there, again, I thought it was just going to be like, you know, one or two people, three people, you could be like, oh, her internet messed up, she gone, you know, after Zoom, you know. But so many people was like, yeah, you know, I want to do it. So we had to find another way.
We'll get it on board, y'all.
Yeah, we working on it. Like I said, we just starting off. We're gonna pray that y'all just provide better equipment and just better internet.
Hey, you never know. We may be moving in a minute.
We may be moving.
So
yeah.
may have better internet. You know, once we move around a bit. As a matter of fact, if it's y'all's will, we'll definitely have better internet when we move around. Told her.
Or we may have to do a thing where we like, and I was thinking about this, and this is gonna be his first time hearing about it on a live feed. But
y'all know how much I love that.
Yeah. So you may have to do a thing where like maybe we get a room in town for Friday nights.
Like a library?
No.
Yeah.
Like
that's a good idea.
because library closed at 8:30, like a hotel room. Right.
Every Friday night?
Every Friday night.
What did she say?
What I said. Somebody said, sis, stop apologizing because you're providing this for our benefit.
Y'all so sweet.
So I apologize to you. Well, I'm gonna apologize to God when I spill the water on his computer.
Baby.
Y'all so sweet.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank y'all. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
I'm gonna tell you, I was thinking something along those lines, but me and Rib often had these conversations, so I figured I'd spare her and y'all. Stop apologizing.
Anybody
Stop
that
apologizing.
ever comes to my house you know, when I'm entertaining anything, I like for people to have an experience. So, you know what I'm saying? I feel like I'm inviting y'all into my home and
Oh, baby, you are experienced.
well, thank you, man.
Especially live and in living color.
Well, I'm gonna take that as a compliment, but I know it won't meant to be no compliment.
I'm getting my scriptures. I'm opening them up.
All right, let's do it.
Family, we're going to go ahead and jump in. Toda, all of you. Thank you. And I pray it's a blessing. You know, we are trying to do the best we can. Barak Hashem Yah. Blessed be the name of Yah. Everything within His will and in His time, you know. All for the benefit of the body. So, everybody got their reading in. This is some good stuff, man. This is some. There's some parts in here. Again, that I won't say I forget I'm reading the Bible, but it's like you just read a really good story, and it draw you in, and you be like, oh man.
And like one of the things, like even me and him, when after we do our But just in our studies, we've read these scriptures. I don't know if you can tell, like from our, we've read these scriptures to the point where our fingerprints is in the pages, right? But even today, just coming right back to old Father Abraham,
Dang.
we was like, oh my goodness, you know what I see that I never noticed before? Every time we read scriptures, we say that.
I like to do
Every
this with
time.
people. She say we read this to the point our fingerprints in the page.
Right.
This is my new word scripture.
Yeah.
And even this one you see is kind of this is just from reading it, fam. It's not from taking poor care of it.
Yeah.
This was my scriptures before that.
Oh my goodness. Can
Is that
y'all
visible?
see this? Can y'all see this?
You see the tape that was binding together. You see the where. Actually, I got this. Let me tell y'all where I got this from. Aki Reg.
Did Aki Reg get you
One
that?
of the eyes that I was telling y'all we visited,
Big
Reg
God,
for y'all,
yeah.
gave me my first scripture.
Wow.
Yep, he let me have his, and he got another one. And although it was used, it wasn't misused. I then took it and I broke it in
Yeah.
to the point where I had to stop taking it. And this is really still my favorite because it's got all of my original highlights and original notes. But I can't carry this with me
Yeah.
in my book bag and stuff like that because it'd be disintegrated by now.
So now it's just an artifact. We keep it on the museum shelf.
I go back to it every once in a while to look at notes that I made during my first read through, to see what I might have been thinking when we were studying something
Yeah.
specific
You
at
see
that
the
time,
growth.
or like to go back to something I may not remember. I'm like, I remember we took notes on this. Where is it at? It's not in a notebook. It's actually in my scriptures.
Yeah.
This one I decided not to write in at all. I got a couple of small highlights, but this one I said I'm not going to write in it at all. I'll leave all that to the last one. For now. That may change. So anyway, I digress. Genesis 22. Yeah, so we were going back over that stuff, and man, it's always wow and amazement. So here we are, Genesis 22. What's going on, Lyra?
So Abraham is asked by Yah to sacrifice Isaac.
Ooh. I'm just adding sound effect.
I know, it fits though.
Yeah.
So Yah asked Abraham to sacrifice Isaac, not his only son, but the son that he's been waiting for. And y'all know, as we've been going back, Abraham, he like, Father, Yah, I know you telling me it's coming, and I believe you.
But to your point, if we read in verse 2, it does say, take your son now, your only son. It does say your only son, Isaac, whom you love, and go ahead to the land of Moriah and offer him there as an ascending offering on one of the mountains which I command you. So Yah called Isaac Abraham's only son. But the question is, was Isaac his only son? I mean, we've been reading this together at this point, so y'all know it was not his only son, but it was the only son that Yah was counting for because he was speaking of his son that was going to be heir to the covenant. Remember, that's what this is all about, right? So he says that's his only son. So he asked him to Yah asked Abraham to take his only begotten son, and offer him up for sacrifice. Now, the interesting backstory to this is if you reading in like Jasher, again, the book of Jasher it did used to be part of canonized scriptures at one point in history. Is that Isaac and Ishmael were actually having like a debate among themselves about what each of them would be willing to do, not for their father, but for Yah.
Because it say here that Abraham took Isaac and two of his young men. So the book of Jasher gives you a little bit of backstory that shows that those two young men was Ishmael
And one of his
and
servants.
the servant that we told you about last week. And we're gonna read a little bit about him again. He's Abraham's favorite servant. Abraham even looked at him like a son.
Okay.
So he had those three with him, Isaac, Ishmael, and
But before that, Ishmael and Isaac were having a little bit of a squabble, sibling rivalry, talking about who loved Yah the most.
yeah.
And Isaac actually says he loved Yah so much that he would be willing to die for Yah.
Yeah, yes he did.
So I know I was speaking to when I used to work in the kitchen a while back, cooking, and it's a brother who used to study Islam when he was incarcerated, and there were some things that he was asking about comparison to what the Bible says to what he read, and he was wondering why Abraham would offer up his son for a sacrifice. Besides the fact that Yah said so. And I was telling him about what it says in the book of Jasher, and I was just letting him know that in addition to what Yah was doing with Abraham, Yah also was calling Isaac on what he said. Like, okay, you said that, really?
Yeah.
Let's see.
Cause see this when we read this sound like we talking about a little boy.
No, they were not young children.
Isaac wasn't young when he said he was like 30 something. When he when Yah. So they was talking stuff back and forth like, no, you don't love Yah. I love Yah. I mean, what you willing to do for? Well, I'll tell you what I'll do. And Isaac, had to one up him like, I'd die for him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we're like, okay, do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so when we get down to let's see. So Abraham takes him. They get up early in the morning. As a matter of fact, this is what I wanted to do, because I know a lot of people aren't familiar with this. It's not a lot of verses. I'm gonna read y'all a little bit about that story because it's very interesting. The things that happen on the way up to what we read in verse 8. So I'm gonna read that from Jasher real quick. Let's go to the book of Jasher, chapter 23. And verse 20. You want to read? Can you read from there? It's going to be a little stretch.
A little strange.
A little strain. Okay. So you guys have read it in the standard 66. We'll read the backstory now. Ready? So this is the book of Jasher. Chapter 23, starting in verse 20. It says, And Abraham went with Isaac his son to bring him up as an offering before the master, as he had commanded him. And Abraham took two of his young men with him, Ishmael, the son of Hagar, and Eleazar, the servant. And they went together with them, and whilst they were walking in the road, the young men spoke these words to themselves. And Ishmael said to Eleazar, Now my father Abraham is going with Isaac to bring him up for a burnt offering to the master, as he commanded him. And when he returneth, he will give unto me all that he possesses to inherit after him, for I am his firstborn.
Wow.
And Eleazar answered Ishmael and said, Surely Abraham did cast thee away with thy mother, and swear that thou should not inherit anything of all he possesses, and to whom will he give all he has? And Eleazar answered Ishmael and said, Surely Abraham, all he has, with all his treasures, but unto me his servant, who has been faithful in his house, who has served him night and day, and who has done all he desires me. To me he will bequeath at his death all that he possesses. And while Abraham was proceeding with his son Isaac along the road, Hashatan, Satan, the adversary, came and appeared to Abraham in the figure of a very aged man, humbled and of contrite spirit. And he approached Abraham and said to him, Are you silly or brutish that thou would go and do this thing this day? Just think about this, because if the Most High were to tell you something like that, just put yourself in Abraham's predicament. Would you so readily, as Abraham and Isaac did, just go and be like, yeah, absolutely?
That's a very good question.
I mean, if we're just thinking about it.
You know, that remind me of when the Messiah was going to get crucified. And Kepha, his boy, told him, like,
Master, no.
don't do this. Master, don't do this. This not for you to do. It's got to be another way.
Yeah.
And the Messiah looked right through Kepha and said, Satan, get behind me.
Get behind me, Satan. It wasn't Kepha.
What?
That's what y'all got to understand. It wasn't Kepha. It was that the adversary used Kepha to speak to Messiah. In other words, he used a friendly.
Yeah.
He used a friendly face in order to try to convince him. Now, can you imagine if the Messiah did not die that day?
Oh, man.
All the things that he died for would
just,
not have come to pass. You understand what I'm saying?
And he always comes to you when you weak, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the Messiah, those who read that story know that was something that he asked Yah to take from him if it was possible.
At the very last moment, he said, if this cup is able to pass before me, but if not, let it be your will.
If not, let it be your will. So even him in his flesh, he had fear of what lay ahead of him.
That was the flesh.
Yeah.
So y'all read and hear people talk about the flesh warring against the spirit. That was the flesh.
Yep.
And it's in a moment of trial.
In a moment of trial, and that's when the adversary come to you, because you already low, and then he comes to you to tell you to do something that your flesh want to do. Your flesh want to say,
or not to do something your flesh don't want to do.
Right. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Y'all have told you what he needs you to do, or showed you what he needs you to do.
Right.
You know what the Father needs you to do. Right? You may not want to do it. Right. And then the adversary slide up, when you weak, like, you ain't got to do this. No, because as a matter of fact, it's your lucky day, so and so and so and so. And we see he came to Abraham, and a wizened old man. So it's probably somebody Abraham knew.
Very possible.
A wise man he knew, and said, Abraham. Abraham already didn't want to do. That was his son. That was Isaac, and he on his way to kill him. Can you imagine how heavy his heart is? He waited his whole life for this, and now y'all asking him to kill him. And here come the devil in the friendly face, like, man, look, I talked to y'all. Y'all don't want you to do this.
Yeah.
Turn back, sneaky devil.
So what we are attempting to do, and what y'all are attempting to do, is to train ourselves to better hear Yah's voice, so that when the adversary is coming to you, you can discern, this is not Yah. Yah already gave me my marching orders. I need to understand how not to turn to the right or to the left. And so that's really what we read. When we're reading this backstory, you're going to see just how determined Abraham was until he heard clearly that Yah was saying anything different. It was straight ahead.
How determined the adversary was to stop him.
Yeah, so this is also a recurring thing, but we'll get more into that. So then he says to him, for Yah gave you a son in thy latter days, in thy old age, and will you go and slaughter him this day because he's committed no violence? And will you cause the soul of your only son to perish from the earth? Do you not know and understand that this thing cannot be from the master?
Wow.
For the master cannot do unto man such evil upon earth to say to him, go slaughter your child. Wow. And Abraham heard this and knew it was the word of the adversary, who endeavored to draw him aside from the way of the master. But Abraham would not hearken to the voice of the adversary, and Abraham rebuked him so that he went away. Yah rebuke you, Hashem.
Yah rebuke you. Get on.
And Satan, the adversary, Hashatan, returned and came to Isaac, and he appeared unto Isaac in the figure of a young man, comely and well favored. So again, as Red was saying, more than likely someone that he knew.
His friend.
So the words well favored let you know that he was someone who was well looked upon in the community.
Yeah.
The adversary is now using someone else. And he approached Isaac and said to him, "Do you not know and understand that your old silly father bring you to the slaughter this day for nothing, for naught? Now therefore, my son, do not listen nor attend to him, for he is a silly old man. And let not thy precious soul and beautiful figure be lost from the earth." That sounds like the adversary.
Right.
And Isaac heard this and said unto Abraham, "Hast thou heard, my father, that which this man has spoken? Even thus has he spoken." And Abraham answered his son Isaac and said to him, "Take heed of him and do not listen to his words, nor attend to him, for he is Satan, endeavoring to draw us aside this day from the commands of Yah." And Abraham still rebuked Satan, and Satan went from them. And seeing he could not prevail over them, he hid himself from them. And he went and passed before them in the road, and he transformed himself to a large brook of water in the road. And Abraham and Isaac and his two young men reached that place, and they saw a brook, large and powerful, and as mighty waters. And they entered the brook and passed through it, and the waters at first reached their legs. And they went deeper in the brook, and the waters reached up to their necks. And they were all terrified on account of the water. And while they were going over the brook, Abraham recognized that place. Wait a minute.
What no brook here yesterday?
And he knew that there was no water there before. And Abraham said to his son Isaac, "I know this place in which there was no brook nor water. Now therefore it is this adversary who does all this to us, to draw us aside this day from the commands of Yah." And Satan was terrified at the voice of Abraham. Check that out. Satan was terrified at the voice of Abraham, and he went away from them, and the place again became dry land as it was at first. I want to remind y'all of another story. And this is the benefit of reading your scriptures from cover to cover, right? Because when you go back and start reading parallel things start to draw your attention. Messiah on the boat with his taught ones, his disciples. He's asleep.
He's sleeping good.
The storms begin to toss the boat to and fro, and it's causing them to be terrified. What do they have to be terrified for when they on the boat with the Son of the Almighty?
Yeah.
That could be nothing but the adversary.
Yeah.
And the Messiah got up like Abraham and said, "Y'all being silly," and told the waters and the storms, "Peace, be still."
Rebuked him. Say rebuked him.
Just like Abraham just did. Y'all see the connection there?
Yeah.
So as we continue our study, we start to see similitudes of Messiah. You'll see similitudes of Messiah and Abraham. You'll see similarities with Messiah and Joseph, Messiah and Solomon, Messiah and Moses. You'll see Joshua. You'll see similarities of Messiah in all of these people. How is that?
Yeah.
How is that so?
I do you one better. I'll show you how this happens in your life. So you ever had things happen to you and you think to yourself, this just can't be a coincidence. You know, for example, you're running late for work, your blood pressure already high, everything that could possibly go wrong goes wrong. Now you're thinking yesterday everything was smooth, the street was open, now it's traffic, the little old lady in front of you in the car wishing death on people, you know what I'm saying? And you're thinking, is this a coincidence? Like what's the odds that this happened at this exact time in this space? You know what I'm saying? What is the odds? It ain't no odds. It's the devil trying to push you to sin. You know what I'm saying? So trying to push you to get your blood pressure worked up, you cursing, you mad, you angry, you know what I'm saying? And it's just no coincidence those things happen. And so that's why I tell people, I strive, my goal, the perfect life for me would be like Messiah. The Messiah was able to just walk through this life and just see all the like Neo from the Matrix. That's crazy. They always, but just see all the devil, just Satan rebuke you, y'all rebuke you. You know what I'm saying? He's everywhere in every little trick just to get you to sin, to get you to slip further away. You know, so
Mm-hmm.
I give you an example, a good example of that. There's a street that I drive down to pick up my daughter from work. It's a big, huge pothole on the side of the road. Anytime you going, I know. Anytime you going towards it, you gotta drive around the pothole, right? This street is always empty. Driving, whatever, you go around a pothole, no problem.
Steep curves too.
Steep curves,
And
right?
that pothole she's referring to is in one of those curves.
Yeah, it's crazy. One day I'm going to get her, running late, and I'm
Shabbat
thinking,
shalom, sis.
Shabbat Shalom. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I'm late. I need to hurry up. My blood pressure already pumping. I didn't curse several people. Get out the route, you know. And so I get here to the street that's always empty, right? And I see, okay, it's a car coming. So it's dark. I gotta turn my brights off. It's a dark street. So now I'm straining to see the pothole. The car coming head on to me with his brights on, blinding me. I done flashed him several times like, dude, you got your brights on, turn your brights on. I'm trying to see this pothole that's coming up. Because if I get, my whole car broke. You know what I'm saying? Like, if I get caught in this pothole, my car gone. It's in the pothole. You know what I'm saying? And I see him come, and I think to myself, okay, what's the odds, right? That me and him will hit that pothole at the same time. And he's coming this way, and I'm going this way, and where I need to swerve in his lane to avoid that pothole, what's the odds that I'm going to end up either having to hit that pothole or coming to a complete stop while I'm running late, right? Can't happen. Like 1,000,000 to 1, right? What happened? We hit that at the same time. I damn near tore the whole axle. Speaking of which, we might. There's a noise. You might. It was crazy. Like, this is a good time to tell him on camera where he can't get mad. It's making a noise. Sorry about that. I didn't tell you about that. Yeah. So we hit the pot, but I just said that's how the devil works.
So as a professional driver,
Oh,
and this is not the time or place for this, we slow down, even if it's going to make us a little late. Because we live. And we get to go home.
I just thought to myself, what's the odds? What's the odds? It can't happen. 1,000,000 to 1.
Okay, so picking up with Jasher. Shalom, everybody entering. We were reading the book of Jasher. We're reading the backstory of what happened with Abraham, Isaac, and as the scripture reads, his two servants on the way up to take Isaac to be slaughtered for a sacrifice. And so as we're reading, this was actually Ishmael and Abraham's servant Eleazar or Eleazar. Yeah. Okay, so picking up in Jasher, we were in verse 20, chapter 23. So Abraham rebuked the adversary for making it appear to be a brook of strong water where there was no water. And Abraham rebuked him and said unto him, Yah rebuke you, Satan. Be gone from us, for we go by the commands of Yahuwah. And Satan was terrified at the voice of Abraham, and he went away from them, and the place again became dry land as it was at the first. And Abraham went with Isaac toward the place that Yahuwah had told him. And on the third day, Abraham lifted up his eyes and saw the place at a distance, which Yah had told him of. And a pillar of fire appeared to him that reached from the earth to heaven, and a cloud of esteem upon the mountain. And the esteem of the master was seen in the cloud. And Abraham said unto Isaac, My son, do you see in that mountain which we perceive at a distance, that which I see upon it? And Isaac answered and said unto his father, I see, and lo, a pillar of fire and a cloud, and the esteem of the master is seen upon the cloud. So he verified. And Abraham knew that his son Isaac was accepted before the master for a burnt offering. And Abraham said unto Eleazar and unto Ishmael, his son, do you also see that which we see upon the mountain which is at a distance? And they answered and said, we see nothing more than like the other mountains of the earth.
Wow.
And Abraham knew that they were not accepted before the master
Wow.
to go with them. In other words, to proceed beyond this point.
Wow.
Okay?
Yeah.
So Isaac was accepted. Ishmael and Eleazar were not accepted to go any further onto what was more than likely set apart ground.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Okay? Verse verse 48. And Eleazar and Ishmael remained in that place as Abraham had commanded. And Abraham took wood for a burnt offering and placed it upon his son Isaac. And he took the fire and the knife, and they both went to that place. And when they were going along, Isaac said unto his father, Behold, I see here the fire and the wood, and where is the lamb that is to be the burnt offering before the master? And Abraham answered his son, saying, See, the master has made choice of thee, my son, to be a perfect burnt offering instead of the lamb. And Isaac said unto his father, I will do all that the master spoke to thee with joy and cheerfulness of heart. And Abraham again said unto Isaac his son, Is there in thy heart any thought or counsel concerning this which is not proper? Tell me, my son, I pray thee. O my son, conceal it not from me. And Isaac answered his father Abraham and said unto him, O my father, as the master lives and as thy soul lives, there is nothing in my heart to cause me to deviate either to the right or to the left from the way. Neither limb nor muscle has moved or stirred at this, nor is there in my heart a thought or evil counsel concerning this. But I am joyful and cheerful of heart in this matter. And I say, Blessed is the master who has this day chosen me to be a burnt offering before him. And Abraham greatly rejoiced at the words of Isaac, and they went on and came together to that place that the master had spoken of. And Abraham approached to build the altar in the weeping. And Isaac took the stones and the mortar until they had finished building the altar. So Isaac built the altar because his father was crying. And Abraham took the wood and placed it in order upon the altar which he had built. And he took his son and set him upon the wood which was upon the altar to slay him for a burnt offering before the master. We'll stop there. So that's the backstory.
And you can even see Isaac. Isaac was about it.
Yes.
You know.
Yes.
Isaac.
Which is why he was accepted. Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. So yeah, that's the backstory, and you see even just the struggles that it was just to continue in the path to do what Yah was asking him to do. And as we read, though, it was a test.
Yep.
Because the very next thing we read in the scriptures, chapter 22, let's start at 7. It says, you want to read that?
Sure.
Let's read 7 and 8.
And Yishak, or Isaac, spoke to Abraham his father and said, My father. And he said, Here I am, my son.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, See the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for the ascending offering?
Mm-hmm.
And Abraham said, My son, Elohim does provide for himself the lamb for the ascending offering. And the two of them went together. And they came to a place which Elohim had commanded him, and Abraham built a slaughter place there and placed the wood in order. And he bound Isaac his son and laid him on the slaughter place upon the wood. And Abraham stretched out his hand. You said read through what?
Go ahead and read 10 through 12.
Okay.
Because that was the next thing I was going to comment on.
Okay. And Abraham stretched out his hand and took the knife to slay his son. But the messenger of Yah called to him from the heavens and said, Abraham, Abraham. And he said, Here I am. And he said, Do not touch him, for now I know that you fear Elohim, seeing you have not withheld your son, your only son, from me.
So pause right there. So before we deal with 10 through 12, I just want to point out verse 8. Let me show y'all something real quick. And I'm not going to attempt to pull up the screen. But I want to tell you, if you can, Google the Blue Letter Bible. You can also look in your Strong's Concordance. If you've downloaded eSword like we suggested, you can go to the Hebrew with the Strong's Concordance and look at what each one of the Hebrew words mean. But if you go to the Blue Letter Bible, if you pull that up, you will find in verse 8. I'm going to go to it now. So we're in Genesis. At the top, if you're still learning the Blue Letter Bible, at the top you'll see a search bar and it'll say Quick Nav. You can go to Genesis, and then you can click on chapter 22, and then scroll down to 8. Now, I'm just learning to use the Blue Letter Bible as well. I'm integrating it as one of our study tools. But here's what I like about it. Because I can scroll down to verse 8. And if I click on verse 8, it's gonna then give you the interlinear version. Interlinear means for every English word, it's gonna give you the Hebrew word and the Hebrew Strong's Concordance and the Hebrew meaning and etymology.
So it's gonna read exactly how it was written with no adding. So sometimes the writer take liberties.
Exactly.
Yeah, and they'll add like, oh, he must have meant to here.
Right.
Or, and then the.
Absolutely.
He must have meant and then
Absolutely.
the, you know.
So Rib was hitting that right on the nail the way she's wording that, because if we read that word for word as it reads in the Hebrew, it does not read in verse 8, my son Elohim does provide for himself the lamb for an ascending offering. It doesn't read like that. It reads, my son Elohim will provide himself a lamb.
Wow.
For a burnt offering. It says Elohim will provide himself. Now, I'm not going to give you my understanding of what that means. I just want you to let that matriculate around in your dome a little bit as you continue in your study. Elohim will provide himself a lamb as a burnt offering. If you see what that's saying. Okay, now let's move on to 10 through 12. So the messenger calls out and says, stop. Now I see that you fear Yah. Proverbs 9 and 10. Y'all familiar with Proverbs 9 and 10? First of all. Book of Proverbs, chapter 9, verse 10 says what? I know you know it.
The fear of Yah
is the beginning of wisdom. It says the fear of Yah is the beginning of wisdom. So that's key. But then he says, because you did not withhold your son, again, your only son. That is something, because as we talked about, that's a big ask. But one of the scriptures that we talked about a few weeks ago was Matthew 10:37, if y'all remember that. I'll read it for you again, because it's very key to our walk and it's very important. And it's something that you might want to commit to memory. And here's the thing. I'm not a book, chapter, verse memorizer, quoter. I can't really quote book, chapter, verse to you like a pastor that may, be able to do that. I'm not one of those people. But I read my scriptures. And I know what scriptures say, and I can give you an idea of where it's at. I may have to look it up to find it. But as I'm reading, as me and Red were talking about, these things that I'm reading about that's going on with Abraham cause me to remember what we've read in the testimony of Messiah. So
Check that pop on there. See if you
here we are, Matthew chapter 10, 37 through 39. Can you read that for us? I'm still getting there.
Okay. Matthew 10, verse 37.
Mm-hmm.
He who loves father or mother more than me is not worthy of me.
Mm-hmm.
And he who loves son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me.
Mm-hmm.
And he who does not take up his stake and follow after me is not worthy of me.
Mm.
And he who has found his life shall lose it. And he that has lost his life for my sake shall find it.
Now, in short, isn't that exactly what we just read? We read about a father and a son being asked by Yah to do something that was beyond both father and son.
Yep.
Both of them had to love Yah more than they loved each other.
And when they loved each other.
And Isaac literally took up his stake.
His stake, yeah.
Isaac literally carried the wood that was going to be used for him to be sacrificed on his back,
Yep.
and walked to give his life because y'all asked him of it.
Now think about these three who was with Abraham,
Mm-hmm.
and their thoughts on their way to this monumental event. And the reason why we say this event is monumental because it foreshadows something.
Exactly.
About their three thoughts. Isaac was thinking I will die for Yah.
Right.
Ishmael was thinking, hey, if this one died, then surely everything's
I'm
gonna
next
be
in
fine.
line.
You
I'm
know what I'm
next in
saying?
line. Yeah.
The servant was thinking, okay, if that one died,
We know you ain't getting nothing.
Yah said get rid of that one because they on some mess.
Yeah.
So I must be
Yeah.
the next in line. So is it
And who more righteous than me?
Right. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? Because I'm loyal to Abraham, So is it any wonder when they got there to the final test and Abraham, where Yah was sitting there,
Mm-hmm.
okay? And Abraham looked and said, Isaac, what do you see? And Isaac like, oh my goodness.
I see the esteem of Yah.
I see this thing with Yah.
Yeah.
Ishmael, what do you see? Ishmael like, what you see? Because all I see is a mountain.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And then
I
the
think you done
servant,
started hallucinating, my
yeah,
brother.
man, you
You
tripping.
getting close to meeting your maker.
And then Isaac, you see it too. Both of y'all nuts.
Yeah.
And the servant like, I don't see anything.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Was that
Yeah.
any coincidence?
Yeah.
Like what happened there?
Yep. Though again, we dealing with an issue where Yah can cause people to see and hear, and He can cause people not to see and hear.
Yeah.
He can cause your ears to be shut, and He can cause scales to be over your eyes.
Sure
He can
can.
also cause scales to be removed from somebody's eyes.
That's why don't be discouraged if
Yep.
you heard Yah's voice clearly. You got to remember, once you hear Yah's voice clearly, whatever instructions the Father gave you, study your scriptures.
We good?
Seek me out.
Okay.
Seek me out. Let go of everything. Follow me. The adversary then, we see where he used people that they knew, people that they admired, to come to them and try to stand in their way of doing Yah's will. You know what I'm saying? And so don't be surprised when you say, I see this so clearly. Why can't others around me see this? If the adversary then try to make you think, well, you see it because something wrong with you.
Right.
I mean, obviously, something wrong with you
Right.
if you're the only one that see it and nobody else can. You know what I'm saying? He used those kind of tricks. And so you be like, my mama don't see it. And my mama been in church for 142 years.
Right.
Why can't my mama see it? And my grandma can't see it.
Don't let that
And
discourage you.
Don't be
Yeah.
discouraged.
Do
Don't
not
be
let that
discouraged.
discourage you.
Because those are some things. that
Here's
the
something to
adversary
consider.
uses.
It may be possible that Yah is opening your understanding. 2 Timothy 2:15-16, study to show thyself approved, a workman that need not be ashamed, rightly able to divide or administer the word of truth. It may be that Yah is opening your eyes and your understanding so that you can help them understand.
Patience.
But that takes the patience, it takes the due diligence, it takes the work, it takes the study for you to be able to then
Yeah.
be able to disseminate the information that you're
Yeah.
taking in and help guide someone else into their study. You know, I'm
Yeah.
not saying you're going to be able to teach them because Yah says he's the teacher. Yah says the Ruach is the teacher. But you can allow Yah to use you. Yah uses us. We see the adversary can use people. But yeah, Yah can use people too. So Yah can use you to help someone that you love see truth. Or even a perfect stranger see truth. It happens.
And what he said is profound.
Mm-hmm.
What he said is take time and you study. You become
Right.
stronger.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because right now, a lot of y'all are babies. And so if you go out there and you try to take on the devil, you know what I'm saying, without building up your understanding and without sharpening your sword,
Right.
you're going to get abused.
Right.
I promise you. You're going to get abused. Take the time to sharpen your sword. Know your word from front to back. That way nobody, and I mean nobody, us, your very best friend who you trust with your
Yeah.
everything, nobody can sway you
Right.
from what you know to be true about this word.
Right.
Nobody. Because the adversary can step into anybody.
That's right.
The adversary can step into anybody. And when you strong, you can say, absolutely not.
Right.
Y'all rebuke you, get behind me.
So
Yeah.
So your sword is the word, and you must study to show yourself approved.
Yep.
And then after you've studied and as you're studying, yes, iron does sharpen iron, steel
Yeah.
sharpens steel. So we sharpen each other as well. Hey, did you get this when you read that? Hey, Akoti, did you get this when you read that? That happens as well.
Yes, it does.
But it's then from a place of study. It's from a place of you testing the spirit by the spirit. I'm testing now what you're telling me according to what I read and what I know. And then if we disagree, we can have a shalom-filled conversation, debate. And I don't mean yelling, cussing, and spitting at each other, but just a healthy debate on what I think I see and what you think you see. And we sharpen each other in that way.
Yep, that's
if we allow Yah in the midst.
Yep.
You know?
Anything that somebody present to you, according to this word, there has to be 2 or 3 witnesses for it to be true.
Mm-hmm.
So if somebody bringing you something, somebody say, you know what, let me tell you something about these scriptures, you know. We ain't got to keep the law.
Mm.
We ain't got to keep the law, bro.
Mm.
You need to then say, okay, now I've read over and 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 over again where we do have to keep the law. So at this point where you telling me we don't have to keep the law,
Right.
let's walk it out. I need you to show me this book that say we ain't got to keep the law.
And preferably, I need you to show me something in the beginning of the book and something toward the end, because if Yah clearly tells us in Malachi 3:6, he does not change.
Yep.
Because what I'm gonna say, in all fairness, in advance, and I got to argue, used to do me like this too. He said, "I'm gonna try to disprove you." If I can disprove you, then something off of what you're saying.
Off of what you're saying.
So if I can show you in the beginning of the book, if I can show you from Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, and all those, obviously, but then I can also show you way in Revelations that we still supposed to be keeping the law.
Yep.
In Revelations, And you can't show me nowhere but in a couple of places where it looked like maybe you don't have,
Maybe that's what he's saying.
and that's only in those 1 or 2 places. I think you're taking something out of context
Yeah.
because context is key.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, you know,
And you're gonna see when we read these scriptures, you're gonna see what the keeping the law is a topic that comes up over and over again with
That's
our
right.
people.
that's right.
You know what I'm saying? Even to the point where y'all like send the prophets to tell them the law ain't hard. Keeping the law ain't hard. Like they lose it with the people. Like, don't grieve the law. Keeping the law ain't hard. Why are you grieving keeping the law?
Why is y'all separating Abraham and his son here in what we read?
Yeah.
Because of obedience, because of them being able to follow
That's
commands.
the separation. That's gonna be the separation between the wheat and the rye. I'm telling you, cause see, the rye look just like the wheat. That's the thing about wheat and rye. You know what I'm saying? As it's growing up, you can't really tell the difference between wheat and rye.
Right.
You can't tell till it gets to the end of its lifespan. The wheat bows,
Like in humility.
like in humility.
Right.
Rye keep going up,
Proud.
proud. It never bows.
Refuse to change.
Yep. That's the difference between wheat and rye. And that's why Yah uses wheat and rye.
That's why those scriptures say he is separating the wheat. He talking about us, right? He talking about you and us.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying wheat and rye. I'm just saying he's talking about the nation of Israel. He's separating those who are humble enough to obey from those who are too proud to bend to his will.
Yeah, you already know. I already know. I don't need. Okay, all right.
Yeah, yeah. So look, still in verse 12. I'm sticking on this only son thing because this is also key. Y'all familiar with that phrase, right? Only son. But here we got Yah calling Isaac Abraham's only son, even though he's not technically his only son.
Right.
I'm gonna give y'all a couple of scriptures. Take from it what you will. Okay. Let's look at Exodus 4:22 real quick. You'll be my reader for me?
Sure.
Told up.
I got your back, baby.
Exodus 4, chapter 22.
All right. Exodus 4:22.
And I need one of y'all to get a KJV translation for one scripture. Minlik, you do that?
Okay.
And you shall say to Pharaoh, Thus said Yah, Yisrael is my son, my firstborn.
Okay, so now we in Exodus 4:22. Yah says, Israel is my firstborn son. That would make Israel his only son at this point.
Right.
If we
Right.
okay. If we're just taking that literally.
In the time span.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's get Hosea 11:1.
Okay.
Hosea 11:1. I'll let you know. For the scriptures translation, give me a second. I'll let you know what we want. You read it from the scriptures, from the KJV, and I'm going to have Rib read it from scriptures.
Okay.
Excuse me, y'all, for taking so long. When Israel was a child, I loved him, and out of Mitzrayim I called my son.
Okay, hallelujah. So we dealing with Israel again. He's speaking of Israel, the nation, as a son. And we were called out of Egypt, right? We were brought out of Egypt by Moses. Okay, so let's now go to John 3:16. I'm sure everybody's familiar with this, right? Let's read it from KJV first. I'm just drawing some connections here that we've seen because we've read through these scriptures already. But I want to draw them now for you so you can be thinking along these terms as you're reading through. You got John 3:16?
Hey, you want me to, it's long. You want me to read it as written?
KJV, yeah.
Oh, okay.
You don't have to, you can read Yah as Yah.
Oh, okay. And it says, For Yah so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish, but have his everlasting life.
Okay. So KJV is only begotten Son, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can you read that from the Scripture translation?
Sure. For Elohim so loved the world that he gave his only brought forth Son, so that everyone who believes in him should not perish, but possess everlasting life.
We catch any difference there? Only begotten, only brought forth. So it's saying the same thing, but brought forth is a little bit clearer from my understanding. He's not saying that Mashiach, Messiah, Yahusha, was his only son, because we read Israel as his son. He said it's only brought forth. In other words, sent in the flesh with my spirit, right? The prophecy of Miriam having a son, but without the seed of Joseph.
Right.
Okay, this was an immaculate conception. We believe in an immaculate conception, by the way. So this was an immaculate conception where Yah took his spirit, and the Ruach HaKodesh caused his mother to become pregnant and caused Yahusha to be his only brought forth son. That's a significant difference. Likewise, Isaac was not Abraham's only son,
No.
but he was his only son of the covenant. You see? So I'm just pointing out another similitude, this only begotten son, because what you'll find is, for example, when we read the scripture you were talking about in earlier when you were pointing out what you saw, where it spoke about I think it was 16 or 18.
Okay. 22? I mean,
Yeah,
Genesis?
22, 16 through 18.
You want to read it?
I can read it if you want.
Okay.
And it says, by myself I have sworn, declares Yahuwah, because you have done this and have not withheld your son, your only son, that I shall certainly bless you, and I shall certainly increase your seed as the stars of the heavens and as the sand which is on the seashore. And let your seed possess the gate of their enemies. That's the scripture you were referring to earlier, right? So Rib was pointing out something, and I was pointing out something. I'm going to let her point out what she was pointing out as well. But what I was pointing out is, because Abraham was willing not to withhold his son, Yah told Abraham, because of that, your seed is going to be a blessing to nations. And it always makes me think of Galatians 3:16, where it says, and when I spoke, and when the prophecy was spoken, it didn't say seeds, it said seed.
Yeah.
And it was specifically talking about Messiah. So Yah, because of Abraham's righteousness and obedience, said, I will give my son.
Right.
I will give my son. And because I will give my son, and because I know what I'm sending my son to do, which is to die, to bring y'all back into the bonds of the covenant because you broke it, I'm willing to give my son because of my friend Abraham.
Right.
My friend Abraham was willing to give his son. I'm willing to give my son. And I thought that was really powerful.
Hallelujah. Yes. Yes. Yes.
But Rib saw something else too.
Now, the thing is, with that, I think there's no way I can point that out and they understand that without. I think that's a separate.
With the
discussion.
gates?
The gates, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
In short, what you will see, is that the area that is speaking of when it says they'll possess the gates is an area that the nation of Israel's, I won't say sworn enemies, but there's some habitual offenders against the nation of Israel. And that's who is occupying territories surrounding Israel very closely and really in the territory that Yah said he was going to give Abraham. So when Yah told Abraham, look north, look south, look east, and look west, to these borders I give your seed to occupy. Some of those offenders still occupy those places to this day. And so when it says in 17, and let your seed possess the gate of their enemies. That's part of the land.
Okay. So, real quick, we were always taught in church. Now prepare yourself.
Uh-oh. Prepare
This
thyself.
is one of the ones that's getting ready to shock a lot of you. We were always taught in church that in the end times, before the Antichrist hit, there's going to be a rapture.
Oh, the rapture.
Okay? There's going to be a rapture.
Pre-trib or post-trib rapture?
Right. There's going to be a rapture, and everybody who served God and got the Holy Ghost are going to be raptured up away from the earth. Raptured up to heaven, maybe. And everybody else on earth is going to be tortured by the Antichrist. We were always taught that.
Is that purgatory?
I don't know. I don't know. However, you'll be surprised to know that that's nowhere in the scriptures.
No.
That's nowhere in the scriptures. And so you say,
well, you have to say, you have to clearly say that what was being taught is that you're gonna be raptured up in the heavens, and then and there you would reside with Jesus forever.
Forever.
So you're gonna be raptured up into the heavens, and then you're gonna live with Jesus up in the heavens forever. That's not scripture.
Now, even when I was a kid, though, hearing the preacher tell me that I was gonna be raptured, but reading something different in Revelation and asking a Sunday school teacher, I'm like, I did a little reading on my own. Something that's highly frowned upon, Don. But it say here that Jesus comes back with 144,000 of the virgins and those who, rolled out with him.
And never bowed. Yeah.
And they're here on earth.
Right.
But you told me that everybody was going to be raptured up and was going,
And,
so,
yeah.
What is it? Anyway. Okay. However, when you do read, you find out that those who followed the law, those who made it out of bondage, goes into a period of time called the wilderness. And they go into the wilderness for 3.5 years. And in the wilderness, they're protected. There's food, there's water.
Think Psalms 91. Read Psalms 91.
Yes. There's food, there's water, while the rest of the earth is being plagued by what's called
Shalom.
What's called the Ravenger, but we find out it's Yah's wrath.
Right.
That spot in the wilderness is protected. There's food, like I said, it's protected from what's going on in the rest of the earth. However, the thing is, there's nowhere in the scripture that come right out and say where that spot is. However, when you read it from front to back, he dropped hints.
Are clues, yeah.
He draws a map.
That's right.
Through every book, there's a map that shows you exactly where that spot is. And this is one of the clues. And he says, and let your seed possess the gate of their enemies. This is one of the clues. And believe it or not, Balaam comes back and in prophesying to Balak and emphasize on this. Anyway, like I said, it's a whole study in itself.
Mm-hmm.
And so we would have to come back and do that with y'all one day. But yeah. I would have to show you. I would have to show y'all the clues that we already found. But this was just another one that it just registered today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. So 22:14, they call that place Yahireh. Yahireh. Translation is Yah will provide. Based on that statement that Abraham made to his son, where he says, Yah provides himself for a lamb for the slaughter. And that place is then called. And it's interesting, you'll see over and over how these places are named based on the events that happen. Mm-hmm. Like the where they made the oath at the well. Mm-hmm. Anyway. So then we get to 22. And we read that Milcah bears children. Now, Milcah is the wife of Nahor. Mm-hmm. Nahor is Abraham's brother.
Is Milcah Sarah's sister?
I don't know that. You read that somewhere?
I think I remember Sarah's sister being Milcah.
I don't know. Mm-hmm. So, but Nahor is Abraham's brother. Mm-hmm. And of their children, they bear Bethuel, mm-hmm. and Bethuel brings forth somebody named Rebekah, or Rebekah, like my Isha's name. Key names. Mm-hmm. They list all of their children, but those are the key names that y'all need to remember as we go forward. Mm-hmm. So Sarah then dies in the land of Canaan, mm-hmm. right? And if you guys remember in our previous discussions, mm-hmm. that land that was named after Canaan, mm-hmm. who was Ham's son, right, mm-hmm. is the land that we know of today as Israel. Shabbat Shalom to all entering the room. Having a Bible study. As long as y'all keep it peaceful in the chat room, it's all good. We're talking about the book of Genesis, chapters 22 through 24. So anyway, you got an eye on everything now? Okay. So the land that is called Canaan here mm-hmm. is the land that we today refer to as Israel, right? Mm-hmm. So we're in chapter 23. I apologize. That's 23. That's the beginning of 23. Okay. So Sarah passes mm-hmm. in the land of Canaan. Okay. And Abraham, I'm going to read this in verse 4. I'm starting with verse 2. Sarah died in Kiriath Arba, that is Hebron, in the land of Canaan, and Abraham came to mourn for Sarah and to weep for her. And Abraham rose up from beside his dead and spoke to the sons of Heth, saying, I am a foreigner, a sojourner among you. Give me property for a burial site among you, so that I bury my dead from my presence. Okay, here's the key. The land that the Most High promised Abraham is in the land that he's in. The land that he says he's a foreigner, the land that he says he's a sojourner in, correct? Mm-hmm. But he still is speaking to the people who occupy that land saying, I'm a foreigner, I'm a sojourner. Mm-hmm. Acknowledging that at this point in time in his life, he does not have what Yah has promised him.
Right.
Okay. Mm-hmm. They respond saying, hear us, my master, you are a prince of Elohim among us. Bury your dead in the choicest of our burial sites. None of us withholds from you his burial site from burying your dead. So Abraham rose and bowed himself to the people of the land, the sons of Heth, and he spoke with them, saying, now he's dealing with the sons of Heth. If it is your desire that I bury my dead from my presence, hear me, and approach Ephron, son of Zohar, for me, and let me have the cave of Machpelah, which he has, which is at the end of his field. Let him give it to me for the complete amount of silver as property for a burial site among you. And Ephron dwelt among the sons of Heth, and Ephron the Hittite, key name, because these Hittites you'll see I won't say you'll see later on the Hittites is another nation, right? The Jebusites, the Hittites, the Philistines, the Canaanites, we consistently had smoke with.
Yep.
They always wanted smoke.
Yep.
Am I using that right?
Yeah.
Except for when I asked, am I using it right?
Right.
They want to smoke with Israel. Okay.
And the Hittites is also another clue for what I was telling you about.
Absolutely.
The Hittites mean cave dwellers. They dwell in caves.
Mm-hmm. And so he's asking Ephron, the cave dweller, the head cave dweller, if he can have this site. And Ephron dwelt among the sons of Heth, and Ephron the Hittite answered Abraham in the hearing of the sons of Heth, all who entered the gates of his city, saying, "No, my master, listen to me." So they all had reverence for Abraham at this point.
Because by this time, everybody had heard what Abraham had did.
Yeah.
Remember, Abraham won the war for them. Abraham defeated, Nephilim for them.
That's right.
And so now they all looked at Abraham as some kind of... Abraham was like a superhero.
Abraham was the priest in the earth. Abraham was the priest of Yah in the earth.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
He was bearing the nation that would soon become the nation of priests in the earth.
Yeah.
But at this point in time, Abraham was the priest in the earth.
Yep.
Him and his son, who was in training to be priest of the earth.
And when you do the extracurricular, that Abraham was very giving. So Yah blessed him with a lot, but Abraham gave a lot. Like, they say Abraham kept a tent strictly for the homeless or strictly for the weary traveler. So like if you didn't have clothes or you didn't have food or anything, you could come and you could eat and be clothed by Abraham, and everybody knew it. Like it didn't matter who or how many. And they say because he was like that, Yah kept giving him, kept blessing him, because Abraham took care of the widows, he took care of the needy, he took care of the homeless,
the fatherless, and the widows.
Yeah.
Just like as we'll read later, just like the law tells us to.
Yeah, and
Period.
so because his heart was like that, Yah just kept blessing him with stuff.
Right. Okay, so I forgot where I was at.
So the Hittite told him, "No, my master, listen to me." 11.
Told her, "No, my master, listen to me. I shall give you the field and the cave that is in it. I shall give it to you in the presence of the sons of my people. I shall give it to you. Bury your dead." And Abraham bowed himself down before the people of the land, and he spoke to Ephron in the hearing of the people of the land, saying, "If only you would hear me, I shall give the amount of silver for the field. Take it from me, and let me bury my dead there." And Ephron answered Abraham, saying, "My master, listen to me. The land is worth 400 shekels of silver. What is that between you and me?" What's 400 shekels of silver between you and me? "So bury your dead." And Abraham listened to Ephron, and Abraham weighed out the silver for Ephron, which he had named in hearing the sons of Heth, 400 shekels of silver, currency of the merchants. Thus the field of Ephron, which was in Machpelah, which is before Mamre, the field and the cave which was in it, and all the trees that were in the field, which were within all the surrounding borders, were deeded. That's a real estate term. Were deeded to Abraham as a possession in the presence of the. Now we're dealing with a legal transaction, right? In the presence of the sons of Heth before all who went in at the gate of his city. And after this, Abraham buried Sarah and his wife in the cave of the field of Machpelah before Mamre, that is Hebron, and so on and so forth. So you're gonna see this cave and this land come up, as Rib said, in several other places. One of which being when we come out of Egypt, those who were patriarchs to the nation of Israel all requested that they be buried in the same place.
In that cave.
Notably, especially noteworthy, being Joseph.
Yeah.
Joseph said, "If I die in here," even though they buried Joseph,
That's another clue.
he said, "Dig me up from here and take me and bury me there."
That's another clue. So remember when we read in Jasher, we read when they went to bury Isaac, Edom met Jacob there at the cave, and they buried Isaac. Jacob thought it was going to be some beef because Edom said in his heart,
Right.
when my father died, I'm coming for
I
you.
got your number.
Right.
Yeah.
But Jacob's sons with him.
Right.
Everybody's scared of them. Okay.
Yeah, but Edom's
sons was with him too,
yeah.
right? But they most scared of Judah now.
Well, they worked up their courage.
Yeah. So they was there, and they thought it was going to be a war.
Yeah.
But it's not. However, some years later,
Yeah.
Joseph tell them, don't leave my bones in Egypt.
Right.
So although Joseph dies in Egypt,
Right.
he tell his family, don't leave my bones in Egypt.
Right.
So now, many years have passed, all the way to Moses' time now.
Right.
Okay, Joseph long dead. Now, Moses say, go back and grab Joseph's bones.
Right.
They take Joseph's bones to the cave to try to bury it, but it's beef
Right.
with Edom.
Right.
They like, nah,
Right.
you not coming in this cave. And
But
it's
we just
war.
read that this land was deeded.
Exactly so, but the land where they was going, Edom owned the land. It was the land of Edom.
Yeah.
So the land where they was going to bury the body, and that's why Edom was ready to go to war with the Bruce
Right.
when they tried to bring Joseph there because they like this on our land.
Right.
It's the same spot. It's the same spot. It's the same. That's the land. That's where it's gonna happen.
Now, they went to war before that as well, while their fathers were alive, while Jacob was alive. And while Esau was still alive.
Yeah.
But that's another story, another time.
Yeah.
That's in Jasher as well. Cain. Okay. So here's the thing that I thought was very was good to help us understand belief, right? Because we're reading about what's spoken about in Hebrews 11. When we read in Hebrews 11, 8 through 12, when it talks about what Abraham did by faith, that's what we just read. That whole, here, let me read that real quick. Or somebody read it for me. Hebrews 11. You got it?
Yeah, I got it.
8 through 12.
All right. Hebrews 11, 8 through 12.
Yeah.
By belief, Abraham obeyed when he was called to go out to the place which he was about to receive as an inheritance.
Yep.
And he went out, not knowing where he was going. By belief, he sojourned in the land of promise as a stranger, dwelling in tents with Isaac and Jacob, the heirs with him of the same promise. For he was looking for the city having foundations, whose builders and makers is Elohim.
Okay. So yeah, Abraham knew where he was. He knew whose land it was, even though it wasn't his physically yet. So he knew what he had to do. And he did it. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Moving on to 24.
24.
Oh, this is where it get juicy. We got a young romance button.
Oh, yeah. It's one of the most romantic scenes in the Bible. It's not the most, because Songs of Solomon shut it down. But this is one of my favorites.
Well, why don't you read it?
Okay.
I'll pause you for a little commentary here and there.
24 is pretty long. You don't want to read the whole.
Well, I definitely want to read at least the.
Influence,
Yeah, I want to read. I want to read. Let's start with through 3.
Okay. And Abraham was old, advanced in years, and Yah had blessed Abraham in every way. And Abraham said to the oldest servant of his house, who ruled over all that he had, "Please put your hand under my thigh."
I think that's Eleazar.
That's him.
Mm-hmm.
That's him. "So that I make you swear by Yah, the Elohim of the heavens and the earth, that you do not take a wife for my son from the daughters of the Canaanites, among whom I dwell."
Do not take a wife for my son. Now we just read. He just.
Bowed himself to them, and they agreed.
I'm a stranger in your land, and graciously,
Peace,
and they
peace,
graciously.
and, yeah.
But don't take no daughter of them for my
I
son.
don't want them. I don't know.
Now is that being double-minded?
No,
Why not?
he's being wise. So he realizes that he's surrounded by his enemy,
Mm-hmm.
because although this is something Yah has promised him, something he won't see in his lifetime,
Mm-hmm.
he's humbled himself
Mhm.
wisely
Mm-hmm.
in the presence of, this your land. Please,
You were very big in this land.
very big. Bowed himself because he knows it's not time yet.
So I want y'all to consider that. And I just asked for her to explain that a little bit, because some of y'all have children. Some of y'all have young children. Some of y'all have children that are already married and have children and all that. I understand that. Some of y'all have children that you are either bringing up in the truth or beginning to think about, how do I bring my children up in the truth? And Abraham clearly understood how to be among people who he was not supposed to commingle with peaceably, but still keep his children from commingling with them, because they were heirs of something of their own. They were heirs of something of their own. Listen, because I don't want to be misunderstood. It's okay for every nationality in the world to have pride in their nationality. So once you understand what your nationality is, be proud of your nationality as well. You have a heritage, you have a culture, you are heirs to something. We are heirs to something that is uniquely our own. It is somewhat to share, but there are certain things that Yah is going to say are for you and you alone. And that's what Abraham is understanding here. Okay, go ahead. Let's go ahead to 5 through 7.
Okay. And the servant said to him, "What if the woman refuses to follow?"
Oh, paraphrase. I'm sorry.
Okay. So
Yeah.
paraphrasing. And so, so Abraham made the servant swear not to take a daughter from the Canaanites. Now, just to expound on that just a little bit more of what he was saying. We know that we read about the children of men commingling with the Nephilim, meaning they had tainted their bloodline, and different nations was really into it. You know what I'm saying? And so you'll learn in the Bible while you're reading it, there's certain nations Yah said it was okay to commingle with, and certain nations he said it wasn't, because the same thing that happened with Noah. The reason why Noah was the only one found, his bloodline, the only one found to be pure, was because certain nations was welcoming in strange relationships.
Same thing that was happening in Sodom and Gomorrah.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? They were like, we do strange things here, and we proud, like he said, they was proud of they heritage. That's what they did.
And remember, as we were talking about Sodom and Gomorrah, we were relating it to major metropolises, right? And so you're dealing with a situation where you couldn't tell, especially now, because don't think in her explanation that she's saying that was then and it don't happen now.
Oh, please.
Okay, you couldn't then always tell someone who was inbred with Nephilim. And so the practices of and the habits and the religious beliefs of those who have that as their cultural identity, you can't discern just by looking at them.
Yeah, because
Your best way to discern will be to know that you and I worship the same.
yeah,
And therefore, I know that what you worship and I worship excludes us from dilly-dallying in that mess they got going on in the world. Yeah. You understand what I'm saying? So now, I have a son, daughter, whatever, and I'm trying to have my son or daughter married off. Do I want my children to then commingle with the children of fallen angels? I'm just being blunt in that respect. No, I don't. So for us to be certain that we are continuing a bloodline of people and of vessels that Yah can use, we say we walk according to the same belief. Yeah, you do. Okay. No mingling with Nephilim? No? Okay, cool. Okay, good. It's okay for you to court those children.
Because you find out, so like I hear a lot of people say, a lot of people come into the truth. And I mean, true story, this one guy who came into the truth, he and his wife, I guess, were witches. I don't know. I don't know the storyline to it. But so, you know, he came into the truth, and it was still some strange things going on. And so now you're in a situation where you're like, I want my children to have a pure understanding of the word or whatever may have you. But then you may have your mate like, no, we don't worship Yah. My family, we worship the goddess of Jupiter or whatever. I don't know.
We worship God in general. I mean, my first question was, what God do you worship?
You know what I'm saying? And so now you having all kind of problems because there's different rituals and things like that. And then, you know, and now you in a situation where, what do? So it's one of them being equally yoked. But anyway, the Canaanites was doing some strange things. We know that because when the children of Israel was coming out of Egypt, and they went back to spy on this land, they found giants dwelling amongst them. Right. So they was into some mess, honey. You know what I'm saying?
And you would know, you would be able to discern what a nation of people did funny based on their culture, right? I mean, the things that they worship would make a difference. For example, And I know that most of us here got into the things that we worship before coming into the truth, before reading scriptures, just by tradition. Things were handed down traditionally. But Christmas, you'll find is a pagan celebration that you can read about in Jeremiah. Sure do. You can read about the pagan celebration of cutting down a tree, decorating it, fastening it so it doesn't move in the book of Jeremiah. So if you can find that pagan idolatrous worship in the book of Jeremiah, and he's saying don't do that, then that's something that was going on among a people who was doing things that we weren't supposed to be mixing with. You understand what I'm saying? So by that same token, it was a lot of pagan practices that I'm sure the Canaanites was doing and the Philistines was doing that would have been well known to them. Now, as we walk in the truth, we can clearly look around and be like, "Ooh, that's some." You see the gutting of the blood and the drizzling of the blood and the pentagram and the circle and all. No, You don't want to marry one of them. You know what I'm saying? We can call that out now. But what Abraham was saying is he knew it was the Canaanites. So he was like, I know what they did there. Don't pick one of them.
I have a friend, and once again, I'm really, really not gonna say their names, but she's real big on going back to the motherland, and and she had a child, and she's involving the child in these strange things, because she's real dead set on being connected with the motherland without doing the due diligence and what do you know about this certain tribe of people that you're so determined to be connected with. Anyway, the child, I don't know, just be careful.
Y'all ever heard?
Be careful.
What's that saying? Ti say all skin folk ain't kinfolk.
Yeah, just.
I mean, there's something to that. Remember,
Be careful out there.
Nimrod was one of the blackest of black, and was also one of the most wicked men in history ever. It's not a skin color thing. It's an obedience to the Most High thing.
And Abraham was surrounded by
yeah
people who looked like him, same color skin.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? And so when he was saying this, he was saying to his servant, a wife for my son amongst these Canaanites.
Yeah. Look how serious he was.
He was serious.
So in 5 it says, and the servant said to him, what if the woman refuses to follow me to this land? Because he told the servant to go get a wife from his family members and bring a wife to his son. Now here's the other thing. Isaac was old enough for a wife, but he didn't have a wife yet. He hadn't started worrying about getting married yet, but he lost his mother. And so Abraham's solution for Isaac losing his mother was get him a woman.
Okay, he's gonna mess this story up.
No, I'm just telling you, but that's what happened, though.
It's so romantic. Okay, so this is what happened.
That's what happened, right? That's what happened.
It's more poetry than that.
It's poetic, but he poetically decided, my son need to give over the loss of his mother. Let's find him a woman. You
really made that round, G. What happens is Abraham has the servant swear he's not going to take him a strange woman.
Right.
He tells him, go to my homeland.
Right.
Go back to where I'm from.
Go back to where Nahor and them at.
Right. And get a woman from amongst my people from back there. And so the servant walking, and he, you could tell he kind of worried that nobody's gonna just give up their daughter, you know what I'm saying? So he says, Father Yah, if it's your will, let A, B, and C happen. And if A, B, and C happen, then I know that this is the woman for Isaac.
Right.
So he goes to the well and he sets up the camels and everything. And he had the camels bow down. So he could do tricks with the camels. So the camels bow down or whatever. And here come Rebekah. She come out. She got how we used to put the jugs up on our shoulders. You seen pictures of the African women carrying their jugs of water on their shoulders. So she got her jug of water and she coming out, and he see her and he say, ma'am, can I have some of the water? So she say, absolutely. So he drinks some of the water. She say, let me get some water for your animals. Let me use my jug to get some water and fill up.
It was actually a few other girls.
Yeah.
But she was the only one
who seen the
else,
stranger. Everybody else about their business.
Yeah.
So she was the one caring enough to help him out. So because he know that this is the one that Yah sent them, he put a bracelet on her wrist.
Not yet. But he takes out the nose ring and the bracelets.
Yeah.
And asks her where your people at.
Right. He put it on her because Because it say Laban, when Laban seen that she came in with threat.
Okay.
At some point, as they walking back,
Yeah.
he probably run the plan by her. He probably tell her, listen, you know what I'm saying, you know your uncle Abraham. Yeah, I heard of Abraham. She probably never met him because he had been gone away for a long time. And Rebekah,
Abraham, Sarah.
yeah. So you heard him. So they're like, yeah, we heard of them. So he say, look, they son need a wife. I prayed to ask Yah, whoever comes to me, whatever, you was the one that did it. I think you the one. So she probably like, oh, that sounds wonderful. So you agree? Yeah. So he give her
the storyteller. She gonna roll on.
Okay.
Just want to jump in there real quick,
Okay.
because one of the things I wanted to mention for those that don't know, Rib and I are married.
Mm-hmm.
If you'll notice, if you ever meet us in person, or if you ever met us, we don't wear wedding bands.
Mm-hmm.
Not that we didn't ever have any.
We pawned them.
We learned as we learned more about our history and our culture, we understood that wedding bands, that custom comes from a different culture.
Right.
The culture of engagement for us is what we read about here, which is the nose ring and the gold bracelets. It is symbolic of engagement.
Yes.
It means that this woman is engaged to be a spouse to a husband. She's spoken for.
She's spoken.
So any man who sees her, even if she's covered up, she covers herself at a certain point.
Yeah.
Can see she got a nose ring, she got bracelets. She's spoken for. I need not interact with her as someone who is available.
So, like, I know a lot of brews, we wear nose rings.
That's our culture.
Several times I've worked at a job where, my boss was like, yo, I need you to take that nose ring out of your nose. And I'm like, well, what you know about it? In my culture, this is how I announce to the world that I'm married. Like, you wear a wedding ring.
Right.
I wear a nose ring.
Right.
Well, where is that? And I had to show him in the Bible.
Yeah. It's good to know your scripture. If you're gonna start to believe in public and in work atmosphere, and say you want like your Shabbat, your Sabbaths off and stuff like that, you again study to show yourself approved. You need to be able to stand on what you're saying. Because legally you have ground to worship how you worship. We don't deal with religion, so to speak. That word has some negative kind of history. This is our culture. This is our belief. And everybody has a right, so they say in America, to their freedom of belief, right?
Yeah.
You're protected legally. I'm not going to get into documentation and all that. But if y'all need to hit us up.
Okay, so she come back. She's sporting a nose ring and she got the bracelet. And so when they get back to her house, she hurried forward to tell her mama and her brother and them about her encounter before he get there. She trying to prepare them. Like, okay, I met a man, whatever. Okay. So he get there. Now, Laban, her brother, businessman that he is, he know about Abraham. You know what I'm saying? He into the markets and everything. He know about Abraham. So he like, man, you came from Abraham? He like, oh, bruh. You want Rebekah? Nappy and Rebekah? Look, yeah, whatever. Yeah, she all
storyteller. I ain't read all that, but okay.
Yeah, she all, you sure? You know what I'm saying? Absolutely. Yeah, Rebekah, get your stuff. Girl, get your stuff. Yeah.
But Laban is something else.
Something else.
You want to remember Laban.
Yeah, he gonna come up again.
Laban being Rebekah's brother.
Yeah.
Is gonna come up again real soon, and you get to see more of his character. You get a glimpse of it in the end of this chapter because he tries to talk the messenger, Abraham's messenger, and his sister into staying instead of going right back.
Right. Yeah.
He's like, hey, why don't y'all stick around for a few days? Stay 10 days,
Something else.
And but Abraham's messenger saw straight through that. He was like, nah, we gotta go.
This guy bowed.
Tell me, what are we doing? And are we doing this or not?
Right.
And Laban was like, how about we ask my sister? And she was ready to go. She's like,
yeah, let's go. My bag's packed.
Yeah.
So they leave, okay, and they ride back to her nurse, and they wealthy, so she would have had her ladies maids and all them with them, and they leave and they ride back to the towards the the house. Now, Isaac come out, he walking in the field meditating, heart heavy. He lost his mom. You know what I'm saying?
Ain't that what I said?
Yeah. So he
That's what I
a little
said.
depressed. And so Rebekah peeped him from the distance, and she like, who is that guy coming our way? So the servant tell her, oh, that's Isaac. And she like, oh, he found, okay. So she put her little veil over her face, you know what I'm saying? And now she all coy and stuff. And Isaac walk up to him, probably checking her out too, because the servant already told us Rebekah banging, right? So he come up like, what's all this? And so the servant tell him, your father sent me to find your wife, this Rebekah. So he say, oh yeah. And so he take her into his tent.
I'm gonna read that exactly how it reads.
Hey,
It says.
That's what it say. What?
It says.
What y'all at? That's what it
I'm gonna
say.
read what it says.
Okay.
It says, and she said, and she had said to the servant, "Who is this man speaking in the field to meet us?" And the servant said, "It is my master." So she took a veil and covered herself. And the servant told Isaac all the matters he had done. And Isaac brought her into his mother Sarah's tent.
Her what now?
And he took Rebekah, and she became his wife. And he loved her. Thus Isaac was comforted after his mother's death. That's exactly what I said. It was
Boom,
comforted
all day.
after. However,
All day.
you can read this two ways. I read it both ways.
Okay.
Isaac brought her into his tent, into his mother's tent.
So into his mother's home.
Into his mother's home. She is now part of his household.
Right.
And he took Rebekah, and she became his wife. We spanning a long time with that one sentence.
Yes, we are. Because, he was smooth. Isaac was smooth.
And he loved her. Now, did he consummate the marriage? I'm sure.
Absolutely.
Let the story just Miss Romantic here. She gonna romantic it all up.
But it was very romantic. Like, if you read it in the other books, you see, like, they played together. Like, you know how playful his father was with Sarah?
Yeah.
Isaac was just like that with Rebekah. He was real playful and he was a real fun husband. Like Abraham. Abraham was a fun husband, You read about, like, him and Sarah playing it and stuff. I'm going to get you, girl. I'm going to get you.
Yeah.
Isaac was just like that. Isaac was playful. He was fun. You know what I'm saying? So
we can wrap on that, but we can wrap it up on that. But I just wanted to point out one more time just how serious Abraham was about that land. I'm gonna go back to 5 through 7. You kind of went past.
I'm done with the romance.
It says, so Abraham said to his young men, "Stay here with the donkey." No, I'm in the whole wrong chapter. 24. 5. And the servant said to him, "What if the woman refuses to follow me to this land?" That's now that we talked about the whole story. Said, what if she refuses to come back? And the servant says, "Should I then take your son back to the land from which you came?" Like, if she, so Abraham is in Canaan, which is the land that was promised to him.
Yeah.
We now call it Israel. He's sending his messenger back to where Nahor was, which is somewhere around
Arabia?
the Iraq, Arad, the Semitic areas.
Yeah.
Okay? Yeah. So he's sending him to the Semitic areas.
Nimrod's still alive at this point.
And he's like, and this is what Abraham responds. He said, "You want me to bring your son back there? Like, if she don't come here, should I take your son there?
Yeah.
Away from Israel, Canaan, and over into Iraq, Arad.
To Nimrod area.
To Nimrod area.
Yeah.
And this is Abraham's response. Abraham said to him, "Beware lest you take my son back there."
Why don't take him back there?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Not happening. Do not take my son there. Okay? He says, Yahuwah Elohim of the heavens, who took me from my father's house, took me from there, and from the land of my relatives, and who spoke to me and swore to me, saying, to yours, he sends his messenger before you, which we saw happened. So he sends his messenger before you to go talk to her. And you shall take a wife for my son from there. And if the woman refuses to follow you, then you shall be released from this oath Only do not take my son back there. So he reiterates it again when he gets into verse 8, right there. He reiterates it again. And it's interesting because his servant, Eleazar, Rebekah begins to water him and his donkey and invites him back home.
Boy, it was the camels.
The camels, yeah.
He messed up a perfectly good love story. He's doing it on purpose.
Here's the thing, though. His messenger acknowledges when she does that this was Yah.
Yeah.
His messenger bows and worships Yah on the spot before they even leave to go to the house. His messenger said, "I know this was Yah that led me to you.
Yeah.
The way you responded to me, you are meant for my master's son, who was also
and it's overwhelming.
For my master's son, who was also my master."
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Pay attention if you're following me. When she asks him who is the son,
yeah,
in the field, he says, "It's my master."
Yeah.
Psalms 110.
Yeah. Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
He says, "This is my master," but his father is his master as well.
Right.
I don't know. But anyway.
But he worships because it's overwhelming. Because you ask Yah, maybe you believe, maybe you don't, maybe you doubt he gonna do it, but then he answers you.
That's right.
He said before he can even finish praying to Yah, asking Yah, what to do, he look up and Rebekah is standing there with her jug of water.
Right.
And so he's like, "Oh, Father Yah, hallelujah,
Right.
wow," So that's how meant this is.
Somebody mentioned Lion and Nuriah talking about
Nuriah.
the playfulness.
Yeah, so you see Lion is this like serious killer, like the most vicious out of all of them, but he had this playfulness about him, and so yeah. Gang. Now we want to give y'all time to type in questions if you have questions. And so, what y'all should do is just start, if you have questions, somebody says take a while for the questions to be typed up, just start typing in your questions when you get to the end. That way you can just press enter.
Yeah.
When it's go time, you can just enter your question, boom, you're ready to go.
Good idea. And I also want y'all to know that the questions that we say we're going to answer in a separate video format, a pre-recorded video, we don't forget about those things.
Nah.
We still do them. It's just that, y'all still email us good questions, even questions that we're not dealing with here. And to do those videos sometimes can take a couple weeks. First of all, gathering the scriptures around our other schedule of things that we're doing, then recording the video, then editing the video. And so it's fairly easy to kind of get a backlog of questions that we're trying to answer.
But we're going to get to
So
them.
we're getting to them. That's what I'm trying to say. We're actually in the process of editing one now.
Yeah.
And we've got at least 3 more
in
to go right after that.
In the chamber.
Yeah.
So we it get big.
These things are happening, y'all. And like I say, y'all willing, we working on some things that'll free us up to be able to do it more frequently. Not to have the same work schedule during the week that I have. Y'all willing?
Y'all pray for us because.
It's a tall task, and the thing is, this is something that y'all see people that have was the playfulness also due to the difference in age, referring to Jasher? Well, that's I knew somebody was going to bring that up.
Yeah.
There's actually some conflict about the age that's mentioned in Jasher. That she was, I think it says she's 12 or something like that.
I think it says 12 in Jasher, but 14 in not Jasher. What's the other
maybe
one?
Jubilee. I don't remember.
Jubilee say 14.
So understand that in these translations, sometimes there are some mix-ups, which is why I also pointed out for certain, because I'm familiar with those, that when we read that there's obviously some time here. You understand what I'm saying? From the time that he took her into his, we don't know how long it was where he took her into the mother's house. We don't know how long it was where she was being reared up by her servants before they actually had a wedding ceremony and then consummated their marriage. We don't know how long that was. We do know that in our culture, girls sometimes did get engaged or pledged for a marriage to someone as young as 14 years old. That did happen sometimes. I'm not sure about 12. I lean more toward the 14-year-old
because it could have
age.
been a thing in where because we did see two different ages, could have been a thing in where they got engaged at 12 and came to live with him, and he was like, he knew this was his future wife. Women, we're more, baby, check that pot, make sure it's not boiling out. We're more mature, women were raised differently back then, you know what I'm saying? So by the time you got your ministration, can I say that? By the time,
funny.
I know. So by the time you got your, a woman, you know what I'm saying? But it could have been a thing in which she came to stay there with them at 12, and they actually did the marriage at 14.
Listen, there's also a courtship process.
Yeah, courtship process.
And that process is not what we in America look at as dating. It's not that, y'all met Friday, next week y'all already moving in together.
Yeah, it wasn't.
Somebody pregnant the next month.
No.
That don't have that was a no in our culture.
It wasn't no such
there
thing.
There was a courtship process. She had to get to know him. He had to get to know her. She had to get to know the family. The family had to get to know her. There had to be a marriage contract. They had
to make sure it was going to actually work.
Yeah, there had to be a marriage contract worked out between the two. So even though she went there, it was probably for the courtship.
Yeah,
there still had to be a contract worked out between the two families.
Right.
And then it's a completely legal thing as far as paperwork, documentation. They had to come to terms of agreement between both of those families. So this is definitely something that would have stretched out over some time.
And it's once back in the day, once you sleep with somebody, that was it. And so you had to make sure, y'all was compatible.
Once you married them. Let's not say that because that's a whole nother debate.
But y'all didn't let them just sample the goods and decide, oh, no, this ain't going to work. They toss it away.
They weren't supposed to, but it did happen.
I mean, it wasn't supposed to, though. But Isaac, I don't think Isaac would have done that. So it was a thing in which, they had to make sure they were compatible and,
Absolutely, Akoti. I'm with you on the nurse situation. Absolutely.
What's she saying?
Her nurse, Deborah, probably wouldn't have allowed too early of a consummation. Absolutely.
Yeah, she probably was stern. Even with the play thing, he real playful. You tell him to, I'm watching him. I'm watching.
Akoti Nikisha asks, the deed that Abraham obtained, would that additional confirmation for the land promised by Yah? Absolutely. It would absolutely be additional confirmation. The question would have been, would they still have it when they came back out of Egypt?
On
Excuse
camera?
me.
Player.
You just said administration on camera.
I didn't burp.
Had a good Shabbat meal. When they went into Egypt into slavery, the question would be, did they still have access to the deed?
Yeah.
And then even if they did, the next question would be, did Esau and his nation give a damn?
Because
I don't care. I'm here.
Esau was Abraham's grandson too.
Mm-hmm.
So it was one of them things in which did Isaac give Esau the deed?
And we gon' I doubt that, but we're gonna deal with that family feud.
Oh yeah.
because the dividing of these sons
Yes.
So you got we looking at Isaac now. When Isaac started having his children,
Yep.
we're gonna deal with some things that some of y'all know about already, but we still squabbling with family members. It ain't family members, but okay, if we all came from Adam, and we all, you want to put it like that.
Yeah.
So there is some division among this human family,
Yeah.
and then there's also division among the family of Abraham's tree as well. And there's some strong reasons for these divisions, and wars were waged.
All these people who feel, and now don't forget about Lot. Remember we told y'all, don't forget about Lot.
Don't forget about Laban.
Lot's
different reasons, but yeah.
sons, because Lot was Abraham's nephew,
Yep.
but even his sons felt that they should have had rights. I mean, if anybody like follow like royal life, and so you have like King George sit on the throne,
Yeah.
and then distant cousin twice removed, 4 times over, Jonathan felt that the throne should be his.
Yeah.
And so that's
Very
yeah.
similar thing.
Yeah,
Very
even
similar
though
thing.
George had like 4 sons, you know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah.
but this is what's happening. So you got all these people who
Even-
feel that they have a right to
Yeah.
Abraham's, you know.
Even to the extent of in it, dealing with Rib's example, even to the extent that when you look at these quote unquote royal families, using my air quotes, because who they say they claim they royal lineage from, I don't respect. But
The Queen of England says she was Jake. She claimed her lineage from Jacob.
yeah, so even to the point where the one who's not sitting on the throne usually is a duke, or they have another title that is a very high title in the order of aristocracy, however you pronounce that. By that same token, Ishmael has a title.
Yes, he does.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yes, he does.
Esau has a title.
Yes, he does.
It's just not the same title that Jacob had.
Jacob had. Right.
Okay?
Right.
So they are still, I don't want to say royal families, but they still have
They're
titles.
still of the royal family, I guess. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They still will be considered like the elite.
They are still the elite in the earth today. That's a fact.
Yes, that's a fact.
That's a fact. So more on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good note to end on.
Yes. Ooh, I'm asleep. I'm so full. I got some daily bread in me. I got some good bread in me.
And I'm going to go back to working on the edit, y'all.
And I'm asleep while he worked on the edit.
So, told all of you for tuning in out there in Hebrew land.
Did everybody get their questions in? I just want to make sure everybody got their questions in.
It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood.
No, brother.
A beautiful
All right,
day for
family.
a neighbor.
We love y'all.
I might be sleepy.
Until next week.
Until next time.
Shabbat Shalom.
Okay, Shabbat Shalom, y'all. See you then. I think Mini-Me's sleepy too.
I think our music man didn't went to sleep. He supposed to play the music on cue.
There's the wind up
You off the line.
and the
Yeah.
pitch.